This is the new and updated entry-level Oris Aquis. Just today, April 9th, Oris announced some new stuff, and this right here is one of them. This is called the Aquis Date. That's as opposed to the Aquis Date 400, which is the more expensive watch with the Oris in-house movement. The Aquis 400 also had some updates that were announced today, but we're not talking about those here, not now at least. I'm going to be real with you, the changes to this watch, the Aquis Date, they're pretty minimal. They're small, aesthetic alterations, and unless you know what to look for, you won't notice the difference between this watch and the previous generation. So I'm going to quickly cover those changes, and then I'm just going to get into the Aquis holistically as a watch, as opposed to an updated watch. That way, if all you want to know is what changed, we'll get through that real fast, and you can go back to doing whatever it is you'd say you do here. This is the 41.5mm Aquis Date with the caliber 733 movement. That's the Solita movement. Starting from the outside, the bracelet. The brushed center links are now slightly wider, and more importantly, the bracelet tapers more, which makes the watch wear a little lighter and a little smaller on my 7-inch wrist. The lugs and the crown have also been changed. It's pretty subtle, but the case between the lugs now comes out past the bezel. On previous generations of this watch, this part of the case was hidden under the bezel. Y'all don't know how much zooming and enhancing, zoom and enhance, it took for me to spot the difference. The marketing material just says that the lugs and case have been refined. The change is interesting, and it just barely makes the watch look a little more traditional, like most other sports watches. I like that it's showing just a bit more case, if you know what I mean. Okay, now the dial stuff, starting with the markers. The new markers have one change that I see. It's that their profile, these edges have a slightly steeper angle. This edge right here is longer than on previous Aquis watches, so they look a bit more streamlined than the older markers. And is this what my life has become? Making videos about literally microscopic design changes to luxury goods? It's just I need to take a good look in the mirror. The mirror polished hands, am I right? I kid, I love this stuff. Both the hours and minutes hands are narrower. That change is fairly obvious, where the definition of obvious is wildly distorted. I've never really been a fan of the Aquis hour hand. It always looked a bit awkward and a bit bulbous to me, so slimming down both alpha hands, that's what these are called. They are alpha style hands. Slimming them down, I'm into this change. All the text on the dial has been given new fonts. The Oris logo now has a few more visible serifs, or maybe it has serifs for the first time, and if you don't know what a serif is, good for you, just live your life and be happy. The text on the bottom half of the dial has been changed, not what the text says, but again the fonts, all different fonts from before. For example, the word Aquis is no longer using a widened or horizontally stretched font. I like this. And finally, at the bottom of the dial, the date wheel matches the color of the dial. Previous Aquis date wheels didn't usually match the dial. A gray dial with a white date wheel or a green dial with a black date wheel, no more. Our long international nightmare is finally over, or whatever, it's good. I gotta think that everyone is gonna like this change, but I look forward to that one YouTube comment that starts with,
"So actually the non-matching color was better because..."
And okay, I think I hit all the changes, at least the changes to the watch, this specific 41.5mm caliber 733 watch. But wait, there's more. The packaging is now even more sustainable. It's made entirely from paper and cardboard, no plastic. Half of the paper and cardboard is recycled. This is awesome, I love it. I know some people want a big fancy box with their entry-level luxury watch. I get it. You save up a lot of money, you make a big purchase, maybe you want a fancy presentation. And there are plenty of brands that might give you a box covered in endangered white rhino leather massaged with bottlenose dolphin blubber, but Oris isn't one of them, and I'm glad about that. And one last change, and you knew this was coming. The price increased by $300 from $2,400 US to $2,700 on a bracelet, or on a rubber strap it's now $2,500. I get a lot of questions from people asking me if the price of a certain watch is worth it. Rarely is my answer yes or no. It's usually some version of how much do you like it? There's no inherent value to these watches. If you like it enough, if you have the disposable income, if it won't result in a bloodbath of a divorce, then yes, any watch can be worth it. And that certainly includes this watch. So now that we know what's new about this Aquis, let's just talk about it as a watch and not a new watch. And let's start with the dimensions. This one is 41.5 millimeters across, 13 millimeters thick, and 48.5 millimeters long. It weighs about 150 grams on the bracelet and is water resistant to 300 meters. If you already forgot my wrist circumference, I will remind you that it's 5.7211 times 10 to the negative 18 parsecs. Which reminds me, Oris makes Star Wars Aquis watches. I know someone who recently got the Stormtrooper one, and it's pretty fun. Because of the case shape, the shape of the lugs, and the bracelet, these Aquis watches wear smaller than a lot of other watches with the same diameter. That still holds true even with the slight case design changes that I mentioned. If you like wearing a 40mm sports watch, the 41.5mm Aquis will be great for you. I find this watch super comfortable, and even though it's 150 grams, I haven't had any problems with it feeling too heavy, or me feeling like I even need to adjust the bracelet length. Some watches I just can't get a good fit on, but this one I have no problem with. There are some okay adjustment options here. There are half links on the bracelet, and the clasp has 3 micro adjustment spots. No real adjustment system though. But that is something that's on the new Aquis Date 400 watches, and I guess I lied, I am going to talk about those. Those more expensive watches with the in-house movements, they now, as of today, have an adjustment system in the clasp. And this clasp allows you to adjust the length of the bracelet without even taking the watch off your wrist, and that's really my jam. But again, that's only in a watch that's over $1,000 more than this Aquis. Or save your money and go for this watch with the Solita base movement, this caliber 733. In some press materials, Oris does refer to this as a Solita base movement, and I kind of appreciate that transparency. It's a Solita 200-1. It'll keep good time, it'll be relatively easy and relatively cheap to service. I guess the main drawback I see with this movement is the 38 hours of power reserve. Not great. The design of the Aquis has always been, I've always been ambivalent about it, both the form and the function. The profile of the watch and bracelet I really like. They stand out from a lot of dive watches at this price. The design is identifiable and different without being too weird for daily use. All of this I personally aspire to. But these shapes also cause some issues. Well, one big one for me, and it's that I can't use normal straps with this watch. I really like the freedom of putting one of my dozens of 20 or 22mm straps on my watches. I don't really do it often, but I could if I wanted to, and you can't stop me. But Oris can and would and does stop me. And then there are the polished outer links of the bracelet. If you're into these polished links, tell me why in the comments. They look good in marketing photos, I guess, but in real life, they're nothing but trouble. Change my mind. I'm actually open to that. My opinion about the design of the watch and the watch overall, they're not really affected by the new minor tweaks that were announced today. Even with the $300 price increase, I still think the Aquis Date is a good watch. If you're into how it looks and how it wears, go for it. But also check out some of the other news coming out this week or over the next week. And happy watches and wonders to all who celebrate it. Good luck to you and your bank account.